very much. Good morning. Okay, first off, has anybody on this table got an iPhone? No? This table?
Yeah, I've got one.
Can it be somebody else? No, iPhone anywhere. Somebody's got an iPhone.
Someone's got one right here.
Can you turn it on? Put it on the stopwatch, please.
Oh. Yeah.
I've got a cunning plan to avoid the hook.
Ah.
It involves this.
Bell.
There's a history to this. There's a history to this school bell. My mother stole it from the primary school in Manchester when she worked there. Now, I'll come back to that in a second, but it's obvious what you're going to be doing. I always start with a disclaimer, and the disclaimer today is that I'm going to talk through 10 bidding golden rules, if you like, 10 bidding constituent parts that I think are important. They don't cover absolutely everything that you might think that is there. There's obvious things that you will think of. They said, why is he not mentioning that? Why is he not mentioning this? I've only been able to pick 10. I've only got a short amount of time to speak. So I've chosen 10 that are important to me. And they've certainly been ones that have been important to some of the clients that I've worked with. I've made some assumptions regarding your sort of baseline knowledge around tendering, so I've assumed that you understand the process generally, so PQQs, ITTs, issues around TUPE. I'm not going to go into any detail with regards to those issues. I'm also going to ask you to start your stopwatch when I not yet. I've got 10 golden rules to go through, so I've got 10 slides. So every 2 minutes, which will give me 20 minutes. Every 2 minutes, I'd like to ring the bell. If
you're going to take any of this in.
Every 2 minutes. Right. If I've not got to the end of a slide at that point, I'm going to have to move on. That's my little rule. If I feel that I'm sort of floating in the water and I'm way out of time, I possibly might take a little bit more time, because I have given 15 minutes at the end of questions, which we may or may not need. So, don't start yet. Don't start yet. I'm just trying to buy time at the moment. One more. Okay. I talked about the fact that everything won't be in there, and it always reminds me that people say, well, you know, bidding and winning business is not rocket science, is it? And it isn't. There's no magic. Next slide. There's no magic formula to it. A lot of what I say today, you'll have thought of yourself. You're probably doing a lot of these things in your own organisations, in developing new business, winning contracts, and working on tenders. The main point for me is that the 10 rules that I have, I like to see the majority of those happening in any organisation. So if you're doing 2 or 3, that's probably not enough. If you're doing 7 or 8, that's probably enough. And you may find one that isn't something you're doing that will be helpful. But it always reminds me of, it's completely irrelevant by the way, so again that's why I'm not being signed, but it always reminds me of Ian Rush, the ex-Liverpool striker, who he became the player manager of Chester City many moons ago after his playing career. And in his very first TV interview, his very first live TV interview, he was asked how he thought he would make that transition from being a Liverpool legend and a football player to being a manager. And his response was that, well, it's not science rocket, is it? So I found that funny, really. So there we go. It's completely irrelevant. Okay. So the first one, you can start now. This sounds fairly obvious, and it may sound a little bit direct, but being good at what you do, for me, is the first base in terms of thinking about contracting, thinking about writing bids, tendering for business. It still amazes me that, I mean, I work with organisations fairly consistently, and fortunately none of the ones I'm talking about are present today. I had to get that one in. But it still amazes me that some organisations have trouble with service delivery, they have trouble with recruitment, they have trouble with contractual requirements, actually performing to contract, they lose contracts, they have financial difficulties, have major staffing problems, etc., etc. You know what the issues are there. And they still believe that the solution to their situation is going for humongously sized contracts, doing exactly what they're doing fairly badly at the time. So my message there is get your delivery, get your service delivery right, get your organisation shipshape, make commissioners love you on what you do, and there's a massive amount of relationship building stuff there involved in that. Give them what they want and more, and be fresh and innovative. And innovative is a key word that I'll refer to probably several times during the next 20 minutes. Then, and only then, look at growing your business and look at getting your bid systems and your tendering aspects going. And again, I don't want that to sound patronising, but the amount of organisations that are struggling to deliver what they're constituted to do, you know, what their chosen field is, and still running around this hamster wheel, trying to gain more business doing the same stuff. They're not able to actually evidence that in the bids. So they've very little chance of winning it. So get the house in order first. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. Strategy. Now, I'm sure we all believe that strategy is important to all of the organisations that you're involved with and you work for and lead. I believe that strategy is important in the bidding sense and the business development sense as well. And you've got to know where you're heading in that respect. Now, the scattergun approach, which I've done in the early stages of my business, I literally went for everything. I went for anything that came up that was some relevant. Sometimes it was tenuously sort of relevant to what we did, but I just went for everything. And some of it worked and some of it didn't work. And the longer I went on, I realised that process doesn't result in any consistent sustainability, and in some cases it has disastrous outcomes for the organisation. Chasing the money and the growth and the size of an organisation, the point Paul made, turnover is vanity, profit sanity. Chasing that money for the growth blindly will not result in long-term success. It just doesn't happen that way. So a bidding strategy, as part of your wider strategy, covers the areas that you want to grow in and why, and the and why is the significant part of that statement. Why do you see yourselves moving into a certain area? Why do you see yourselves expanding what you currently do? Have you got your house in order to be able to move forward in that direction successfully? Assumptions on what contracts are coming up and when. So your strategy will obviously do a mapping exercise of what's coming up, whether it's locally, whether it's further afield than that, and really mapping out what your strategy says you're going to do and go for. How to improve your bidding processes. I'm going to talk a little bit about bidding processes in a minute. That should be in your strategy. I'm going to finish this quickly. That should be in your strategy. How to improve those processes. And anything else that improves your chances of success in a tender. So that might mean price review, it may mean relationships with other organisations and partnerships, looking at those in detail. It will definitely mean innovation and service development, geographical presence, and the bidding strategy should be in the aims in your business plan. I believe it should be in an agenda item at board meetings and at senior management meetings, and it should be discussed in detail at every one of those meetings. So towards the end of my own business, it took a lot for me to go off piste, as it were, in terms of people saying, can we go for this, should we go for this? And I used to say, if it's not in our strategy, we're not going for it. And it took a hell of a lot for me to deviate from that. It took me about 5 or 6 years to learn that, but it worked for the following 5 years. Okay, now 30 seconds on the hand. There we go, pressure's on. Right, allow tenders to influence development. The vast majority of organisations here are fairly large. I'm talking from a perspective of an organisation that my own business, it was £1 to £2 million in turnover, very small compared to lots of your organisations. And what I came to understand after a few years of working on governance, working on HR, working on all the things that we needed in place to operate, what I came to understand was that taking all the creative ideas that we had, that I had and staff had and everything else was really, really important and good. But I got to this point where I actually believed that the development of the organisation should be focused purely on the requirements of procurement, the requirements of tenders. And that's where, certainly for 2-3 years of my organisation, that's where all of our development came from. So if you're weak in a particular area, it will show up in your tenders, it will show up in your feedback. Make that development part of your service development. I mean, we were rubbish at service user involvement as an example. Our organisation, we won contracts, but our service user involvement was weak. We were getting poor marks on it. That went straight to the top of our list of development areas. And working from feedback to tenders, weak areas, putting that into your strategy and prioritising those issues really worked for me. And don't waste time indulging in daydreams. If you get time to do that really creative stuff that staff come up with and you really want to do, then if you get time to do it, do it. But it's not going to pay the bills, generally speaking. It's not going to pay the bills. So if you have enough capacity, do both. Okay. Am I ahead now on this one? Wow. Implement bid systems. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, and it's hot off the press, and it was in this morning's BMJ. Tender fatigue is one of the fastest growing illnesses in the Western world. People and organisations that catch this disease find that business development capability evaporates immediately. Furthermore, sufferers of this disease are quickly identified as useless, indecisive, and a waste of space. I'll paraphrase that a little bit, and clearly it's completely made up. But tender fatigue, for me, is a massive issue when you're writing bids. Focusing your time and energy in the right parts of bids, the bits that get the score the highest points, is absolutely critical. Having a team that can maintain its energy levels and is supported to do that, has the capacity to deliver bids, is absolutely critical as well. Using systems to make that easier, using bid systems to make that easier and allow people to have more energy is the way forward in my view. I use 3 main systems. So I use an answers archive, which is a system where all the best answers that the organisation has written, and these are based on scores from commissioners, from tenders, whether we've won or lost. Those go into the tender archive. So you can straight away go to your best equal ops, your best equality and diversity answer, your best service proposals around smoking cessation or sexual health or whatever it might be. You can go to your best 5 answers, and you can categorise what they are. So you can build your own system and categorise what you want to see in different sections. So the answers archive will lead you straight away. You're not got any issues around. I'm sure I've written it. The amount of times I've written tenders, seen a question and said, "Oh, I've definitely written an answer like this for another bid. But could I find it? No, I couldn't find it." And what the answers archive does, and it does need some administration. It focuses you on going to your best answers. And when I say best answers, not the ones that you think are the best, the ones that have been scored the best. A scoring matrix is related to the answers archive. All of your your previous 10 bids, let's say, you can be inputted into a scoring matrix in different categories. These are systems that you can put in place. What it does is give you an average, gives you a mean of score of each particular area. And the illuminating thing with this is that several clients that I've worked with it now, I've asked them, where do you think your strongest bit of your bids are? And they tell me. And then I go away, take their score, their feedback from questions, and I come back to them and say, you think you're getting about 80%, 4 out of 5, 80% is a great score in tender terms, you're in the winning, you're in the winner's circle, sort of, thereabouts. You're actually scoring 58%. And they're remembering the ones that have scored highly. They're thinking, well, we did get 4 out of 5 on a couple. Yeah, but you got 2 out of 5 on the others in the same category. So it basically ranks your answers, your scores, based on feedback, and really focuses you on where your development time should be going. A bid planner, dead quick and easy, something that should be in place with every bid process, showing your kick-off meeting, who your key individuals are, your deadlines, your draft 1, draft 2, edit, etc. That's got to be in place also. If you want to go even further, I would go even further. Recruit or redesign a role within your organisation from your administrative functions to become, so you've got a tender administrator. I've spec this job up. I'm absolutely convinced that the organisations that take this step and don't wash this person with, give them all the admin work. They work on tender administration. They run the systems. They run the bid systems. They even provide. Hopefully, in the future, they will get to a point where they're so skilled and capable in tenders they understand them inside out. They'll be dropping answers in from your answers archive into a first draft and saying, "There you go. We're halfway down the road. See what you think, your individuals think about it." They may get it wrong, they may get it right, but you'll certainly be further down the road by taking this approach. So put bidding into your strategy and put it on your agenda and get systems in place. Where am I now? I'm way behind now. Failing badly. Monitor performance. I've worked closely with organisations that are on a really bad run, and I've been on a bad run myself in my own organisation. We had, I think we had a 2-year period where we won everything we went for, literally, and then we thought we'd made it. We thought we were going to win forever, and we didn't do some things that should have been done during that 2-year period, and I learned a big lesson from it. We then lost a bid. And I felt like the whole world had collapsed around me, because everything revolved around Rob at that point in time. I'm surprised you didn't know about that. But so I was absolutely devastated, and then tried to work out what had happened and where we'd gone, and realised fairly quickly that we hadn't really worked on getting better. We just sort of assumed that we were going to win. So what I tend to do now is monitor performance and encourage organisations to do that. So use the scoring matrix, identify weak areas, bring those right to the top of your development areas and your development list. Review the process, review the bidding process. Ask your staff, ask the contributors what they think. How did that feel for you? Where did it go wrong? Were the timescales ridiculous? Were those timescale problems our issue, or were they the tender issue, the tender's timetable issue? Ask your staff and get the views of those people. Put in place an improvement plan and push for more detailed feedback from commissioners. They will provide it if you push them. So one of the organisations I work for actually go and request to visit commissioners when they've lost. They request to go and have a meeting with them. Some commissioners will do it, some will just say, no, this is our process, some will do it. You go and sit down with them and really get into detail about exactly where the answer could have been better. And they'll give you some of those steps forward. So I went through this process with an organisation, submitted a report, sat down with the CEO, and see, does that mean I'm 2 behind? Or 1 behind?
Yeah.
2.
That's what I had about you.
I'm going to have to catch up somewhere.
Right.
I'll catch up somewhere. So he said to me, I gave him the report, and it was an analysis of the scoring and the performance, and he said to me, so what do you think the main reason is that we're on this bad run? And I started to give him an overview of the analysis, and he stopped me and he said, well, I've read your report, and he said, do you know what I think? And I said, well, tell me. And he said, I think it's because we're rubbish at what we do. And so the silence sort of occurred then, and I didn't really know what to say to him. He said, what you've analysed is that we focused on our business development too much, and this is the negative effect of putting too many eggs in the business development basket. What they've done is they've focused on the business development, gone through growth. All the staff were really keyed up to and understood what the organisation was doing and trying to improve. They've forgotten the front line. They hadn't invested enough in the front line. Staff were becoming disenfranchised. Quality was dropping, and that's what he fed back to me. He said, we've not balanced the two. We've got our business development unit really understanding how to win business, but our data, our evidence, our outcomes has dropped off the edge of a cliff. So getting both right is really important, and to do that, you obviously have to monitor the performance of the organisation. It's really difficult to win public sector contracts if your services are failing or they're poor in some areas. It's really, really difficult, and you'll find that you may have some great bits of the service, but you won't be able to deliver them to anybody because at some point you'll have no contracts, and you'll not be able to deliver your great stuff. So you have to be good across the board, and monitoring performance helps you do that. Process and plan. this is basic project management, and Paul referred to some of it. I'll try and catch up a little bit of time here. Identify a bid lead. It's amazing how often this doesn't happen. And organisations say, oh, it's so-and-so's job. Well, give them the title bid lead, whether it's for a month, 2 months, however long that bid is. It's got to be obvious. Have a kick-off meeting, use the bid systems, identify the gremlins on day one. You must go through the document in detail and identify where the bits are that you feel you're going to struggle or a challenge. Don't leave it until day 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because it slips, and before you know it, you're trying to get over a wall that you're struggling to climb. Set timetable of key dates, use the system to do that. Agree who's doing what and by when. If it's a large bid, and it's one that, you know, absolutely critical, mountains of information to get through, loads of choopy stuff, etc, 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 loads of questions, open a bid room. If you've got space in your building, a small meeting room, take it over for the next month, get everything on the walls, flip charts. It's a place where people who are contributing to that bid can go, see all the documents, see the latest drafts, write some ideas on the board, because we know how difficult it is for everybody to get together every single day. Open a bid room, that CSI sort of model. Use a bid writer if you want to. This is optional, obviously, but if you do use a bid writer, use them correctly. Be clear about what you want them to do. Get the right one, obviously. Get one that can write and understands your sector, and manage them in the right way. Agree an editing process and your admin. Again, going back to that tender administrator role. If you've not got that, agree how the admin's going to happen. Most importantly, turn those characteristics into a process, a formula that you use with every single bid that you do. And don't deviate from it, whether it's a £50,000 a year bid or a £20 million bid. You can fast track the process, you know, depending on the I'm becoming deaf in this ear now. I'm not hearing that well. You can fast track the process if you want to, depending on the size of the bid. But make sure that that becomes standard practice. This process becomes standard practice. Have you got the capacity to do it? Then this is what people say, but we haven't got capacity to do all of this. Well, you need it, basically. But it challenges our day-to-day operations. We can't deliver our services if we're distracted doing this. You have to find a way around it. Because you can't grow otherwise. You can't win business unless you really do take it seriously in terms of capacity. And it's hard work, yeah, undoubtedly it is hard work. Tenders are really, really hard work. The rub is, if you do these things and you put processes in place, you have a strategy, etc., you will find that it's easier. It gets easier. And that stuff that I referred to as daydreaming, the really creative, innocent stuff that you want to do, but it doesn't quite fit with what the tender requirements are, you will find more time to do that. You'll also be able to manage more bids at the same time concurrently. So, process and plan. Prioritise. This is really down and dirty bid writing stuff, but it's absolutely important. It's critical. One of the golden rules, so it has to be in there. All points are important in a bid, and usually, certainly the ones I've been involved with more recently, there's 2-3% between first and second place. So if you look at it on that basis, then every single point is absolutely critical. But the heavy scoring questions, the ones that have the bulk of the points, you should know that on day one. You should rank the questions, do your own sheet and table, say this is the one that gives us 35%. And right down to the other ones. They're all important, but your heavy scoring questions, usually your service proposals, are the ones where you're gonna make your points up, and obviously your price, which I'll come to. So rank the questions. Energy is the key, and again, it comes back to that energy that the team have got, and putting the systems in place to retain that energy and provide as much of it that goes towards the quality work. And again, just a quick example, I know I'm miles behind. I had a client call me the other week. It wasn't a stepping out client, by the way, and it was towards the end of a bid, and I'd finished the work that they wanted me to do. And she said to me, Rob, I'm quite concerned about this bid. And I said, really? Why? You know, is it my work, or you know? And she said, no, it's not that. She said, I feel like we've focused too much on section B, and section C is the one that provides us with the real big points. And I said, well, you only asked me to do section B. and she hadn't shared the bid with me at all. So I just did what I was told, really, was that, you know, sometimes a consultant does. And they were quite clear in saying, we just want you to do this. And what they'd done inadvertently was they really hadn't focused on the major scoring areas. It was such a schoolboy error, really, but they managed to do that. So it does happen, and that's a fairly big organisation as well. No, probably, I think I caught up there. Okay, characteristics of a good answer. These must be in every narrative or every written answer that you have with a bid. Again, I know that you know this, but it is one of the golden rules. The answers must contain some, or if not all, of these characteristics. Firstly, it must answer the question directly. And the amount of, I do a lot of editing, so people write the technical responses, they'll send the question to me and say, can you edit it? And the first thing I do is check that it answers the question. And I'd say about 40% of the questions that I read don't answer the question. They might answer it partially, but they don't answer it fully. So I go back to them and say, well, you've got 5 marks that you're going for on this question. You're only going to be considered for 2.5 of them because you've only answered half of the question. So straight away, it's back. Answer the question directly. It needs to be well written. And I mean, the feedback I've had in the past from a commissioner, not necessarily stuff that I've written, is that, oh, that tender was a pleasure to read. And that was feedback that we got as an organisation. And I always go for the option that say, well, like a good book, you lose yourself in it, you think, where did those 50 pages go? I think a tender should read in the same way. It's a literary piece in some respects. It should be easy to navigate for the reader. I always think dot to dot with this, that you've got a criteria that you work to, and obviously there'll be some bits of that criteria, they won't give you all the answers, they won't say we need this. Where's the hook? So make it easy for the person reading it to score you. Do it in order, do it very, very clearly. Don't expect them to be Inspector Clouseau and find the answers within it. Make it very, very simple for them to do that. I used to call that the ticking hand. I know everything's done on computers nowadays, but a commissioner told me that when you read something that's really good, it's very easy to say, well, it's got, there's that mark, there's that mark, there's that mark. They just end up sort of going like that because they're really enjoying it. And before you know it, you've got full marks. Service proposals must be crystal clear. The amount of bids that I read where service proposals aren't clear is startling. Examples of track record. I started late. I'm pulling Paul's thing here. Examples of track record needs to be in there. Evidence of relevant outcomes. Reference to legislation and guidance always needs to be in there. Local knowledge is a critical one, becoming more critical, especially for organisations moving into different areas. Go and find out about that area, know that area. Innovation. Again, it's expected that you will have innovation in your bids these days. Price incentives, cost reductions. If you can come up with a creative financial model that provides an incentive for the commissioner to save money maybe at some point, include that in. It strengthens the bid. Charts and diagrams to break up the narrative. I'll do this one really quickly. Drafts and edit. When you do a bid, you must know as an organisation, as a bid team, what you mean by drafting and editing. And my experience is that lots of organisations don't really understand what they mean by it. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but you have to define it yourselves. You have to understand what that means. Is it about checking for mistakes, like the grammar police? Is it an independent person reading it and checking that it answers the question, or giving feedback on the technical aspects? Is it somebody who's able to add to the answer and redraft it? Does editing mean rewording? Does it mean just checking the word counts or technical content? Be clear about what you mean about that. So you must have a process in place to do that properly. You must give yourself time to do it properly, and you must be prepared, this is most important, to rip it up and start again during that process. It's a hard thing to do where you say, we've got this completely wrong, let's start again, because there's so much pressure and stress involved in a tender process, but you must be prepared to do that. Final slide. Price and commercial offer. This could go anywhere. It's not number one as in it's the most important. I don't believe it is. It has to be good, but certainly commissioners that are in the job for the medium to long term know that you don't have to do the lowest price. quality is coming back into, certainly my analysis is that quality is increasing in terms of the percentage split on bids. It got pretty bad in, you know, a few years ago where we got down to like 70% price, 30% quality. That's shifted. At the moment, what I'm seeing is 60-40 in favour of quality. So they're really positive signs. But have a template in place when you're trying to come up with prices. It helps if you understand your prices inside out. If you can get hold of your competitors' prices, that's even better. Some of that information is public. Some of it you can wheedle out of annual reports and other commissioners maybe, potentially. So if you can find that information, record it centrally and use it. Attitude to risk is important. If you can give guarantees or you can give cost reductions or incentives to the commissioner, do it. You know what you need to break even. You need to know what you want as a margin. That's absolutely critical in coming up with your price. And a lot of the time, unless you deliver the same thing all the time, you absolutely understand that price inside out. You've got to rely on a bit of scientific sort of finance stuff, but also a little bit of gut feeling as well. So that should be in your strategy as well, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.